Word.
Hello.
Hi.
I want to welcome you all to the Big Beautiful Bill Townhall, a partnership between Germantown United and Philly Teen Jobs. My name is Sheirce White. I am the Resident Services Manager at Germantown United CDC. I'm also the creator of Philly Teen Jobs. Through both organizations, I provide resources to all of Philadelphia, connecting youth and residents to jobs, training, housing support, and opportunities in the community where we live at. If everyone has a cell phone, if you have a cell phone and you're on social media, if you can pull up your Instagram or Facebook and type in the search bar Philly Teen Jobs, Philly.Teen Jobs with an S. So you can like, share, and follow my page to find resources. If you successfully get on the page, find a post that interests you and share that with a teen you know, a youth you know, your cousin, family member, your neighbor, a business you're affiliated with, because you don't know if they may have some kids in their household that can use the information. While you guys are doing that, I'm going to introduce our first speaker, which is Senator Art Haywood. He's been a longtime advocate for social and economic justice, especially healthcare, housing, and poverty reduction. Tonight he'll walk us through the Big Beautiful Bill and what it means to Medicaid and briefly on SNAP.
I will need that much.
Yeah, thanks so much. Thanks for inviting me, and very glad to be with you all. I do have a handout that you may or may not have, which is a brief description of the Big Beautiful Bill. And I'm going to go through that very, very quickly and then talk a little bit more about SNAP. Fortunately, I have a number of people here who are experts on these new requirements as well. I've got to leave about 7, but hopefully we can get through some of these main points now. So first of all, the national legislation was passed in July, and it had what was called effective immediately. Now, effective immediately is very challenging for all of the states who've got to try to figure out how to comply with some of these rules. And some of the rules do actually require some regulations that the states would have to follow. But let me just hit the first 8, just so we're all on the same place, about the big picture. This is the big picture for the bill. I do not call it the beautiful bill. Here you can see it's called the bad bill. I've heard other people call it the Greed Act and many other names. First, on work requirements. SNAP is food assistance that I hope we're all familiar with. These are new requirements for work, school, or volunteering in order to keep these SNAP assistants of 80 hours a week. I'll talk a little bit more about that. And the impact is, what I have is equal. Equal here is impact. The impact is going to be there are going to be more hungry people. There will be grocery stores. There will be losing jobs, and some will be lost. Are you all familiar with the Save-A-Lot at Washington Lane and Chew?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That's a grocery store where 80%, 8 out of 10 of the shoppers are SNAP recipients. And so SNAP recipients are, folks lose their SNAP assistance, they're going to lose their customers. What happens when you lose your customers?
You lose your business.
You lose the store. Next is the work requirements for Medicaid, which is health care. And my friend Louise Hayes, I know she's going to talk a lot more about that. But there's also a lot of reporting, which is going to have a lot of people, I believe, fall through the cracks. And that will end up in what? Untreated illness. when folks don't have access to health care. The third are deep cuts to health care. I don't know if anybody here gets the health care from the penny program. That's Obamacare. Obamacare used to get some significant support, particularly from the Biden administration. I spoke to the folks who run this program. It's about 500,000 Pennsylvanians on it. They said premiums are going to, for some people, double. What happens when premiums double? You don't have the money, you don't have the health care. So this means that there's another situation where people are going to lose health care, and hospitals that depend on being paid won't be paid if the insurance isn't there to pay. So hospitals will be on the brink. There's been an effort to defund Planned Parenthood. Fortunately, the courts have slowed that down. But if that's successful, that means there'll be less health care and fewer choices for women. There's some new student loan requirements that make student loans more expensive. What will that do? It means that colleges become more unaffordable when we can't afford the student loans to cover the payments. Does that make sense?
No.
Because you also have, no, we're not for this stuff, 100%. Solar incentives. This was in order to help us deal with climate change so we can help to manage all the flooding and the droughts. Those have been eliminated. One was so you could get a solar for your home or for businesses. Another was so you could get an electric vehicle and get a big discount. Those are being eliminated all before the end of the year. So that equals higher electric bills, because when solar is part of the mix of what you're paying, solar's gone, then you're paying the fossil fuels, electric bills will be going up. And obviously we will not be addressing the climate change, which is not just for our children. Climate change is happening to us now. Funding for mass ICE raids is going up. Funding for detentions, up. Funding for deportations, up. What does that equal? Families separated, jobs that are lost, businesses that are hurt, including the business here that provided us with food, Das Good. The owner was detained, taken off the street of Cheltenham Avenue, and he's now in Moshannon Prison in Clearfield County. And then the last is number 8, massive tax breaks for the rich. Any rich people here?
No.
All right, let me hit a few more points on SNAP. So you have my other flyer, which is the food is dignity flyer. If you don't have it, we certainly make sure you get it. And we have another flyer with more detail. This is the basic deal for SNAP food assistance. Starting September 1, it's already happened. Starting September 1, able-bodied individuals have to demonstrate that they're doing 80 hours a month of work, school, or job training, or volunteering. Those are the main categories. That will apply to 18 to 54. Disabled does not apply. Disabled people are exempt. Disabled people do not have to do work, school, or this other stuff. We're on the same page? And if you have a child, doesn't apply. And there's a number of other people where it does not apply. But able-bodied up to 18 to 54, these rules do apply. Now, this is step 1 of the changes. Step 2 of the changes are the most dramatic, in my opinion. Step 2 is expected to be in place, Department of Human Services says by November the 1st. There is an anticipated date. This means if you are under 64, able-bodied, you will be expected to do 80 hours of work, school, or volunteering. So I was on a town hall with a lady who was retired, on a fixed income, and 62. So she asked me, will these requirements apply to me? My answer was what? Yes. She She's under 64, she's 62. She wasn't disabled, didn't have any of some of these other challenges. Talk to another lady. She's working 15 hours a week. Now, 15 hours, you need to get up to 20 hours to get 80. Does that make sense? So she's only at 15. So she said, I got 15 hours of work. Is that enough? What did I say? No. You got to get to 20. Now, it doesn't have to be every week, but you got to get to the 80 before the end of the month. So she got to find 5 hours of volunteer or something else. She said she's already maxed out on her hours of work. Can't get more work. So she got to probably find volunteer solution. And I already told you about the impact on the grocery store. This is a grocery store we know to save a lot. Now, y'all know some other grocery stores in the same situation. What about the historic Sheldon and Wayne? The IGA. They got 8 out of 10. So many stores in our area have 8 out of 10 or more people receiving SNAP with their customers. If they don't have these customers, they got to look at cutting hours or closing. Now, I do have a few other things to briefly share. Louise Hayes will provide much more detail about some of the exemptions, but there's 3 things I want to ask folks to do. 1, anyone who receives SNAP EBT cards, please ask them to update their address with DHS as soon as possible. The DHS is sending out communications, they're sending out letters, but if the address is wrong, it's not going to get to the person. So updating the address, including making sure the address is consistent with the post office address, is the #1 request I receive from DHS. So they reach, because they're trying to reach people, so the folks get the communication. The second, if you're in an organization that can provide volunteer hours, if you're in an organization that can provide volunteer hours, there is a series of forms that DHS has so that the hours can qualify, they can count. So Jordan in my office has all that information. I encourage Jordan to stand up.
Yes, and all the forms are here as well that everyone can take. That all in my system.
Thank you. You have the forms here, but you can also follow the Jordan for further action. Now, the charity network, I know a lot of us support charity food banks. The charity networks provide 1 meal for every 9 meals of SNAP. The charity network only provides 1 meal for every 9 of SNAP. So I'm all for the charity network, but we don't have to confuse ourselves. SNAP is providing way more meals than charity network. Charity network cannot replace the SNAP meals. I'm for charity, but I don't want to be confused about what that network can actually do. The last thing I'd like to share is this. A number of us are trying to come up with a matchmaking program so we can match individuals who need volunteer hours with organizations that have the hours. This is something that's just started. Hopefully it'll be underway in the next 2 or 3 months. But right now, these requirements apply, 18 to 54. And if you don't comply with these hours, you will only get 3 months of assistance in 3 years. 3 months in 3 years if you don't comply. Now you can, you may not comply for a while. You can get back on. You come off and on. But this is how draconian, this is how evil, this is how cruel this legislation is. Thank you for allowing me to share.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Haywood. Next, we'll hear from Louise Hayes, supervising attorney at Community Legal Services. Louise has dedicated her career to protecting the rights of low-income Philadelphians. She will be discussing Medicaid changes effective in 2027 and break down how SNAP recipients will be impacted as well.
Great, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Great. Thanks so much for having me, Sheirce. I want to talk a little bit about Medicaid, the Medicaid details about the SNAP cuts that are coming up and how people can be protected from the SNAP cuts through exemptions, because that's what we are mostly trying to do. It's great if totally on board with everything the senator said, very excited about this volunteer slot matching, but exemptions are the way we can protect most people. But I did promise to talk a little bit about Medicaid. Well, the Medicaid cuts are going to be scary, but they're not happening for over a year. So that's why I want to tell you about them, but mostly focus on SNAP. So in a year, this is January 2027. So this is actually like 15, 16 months from now. A lot of the work requirements we're talking about today for SNAP are going to apply to Medicaid, which is super, super scary. And in some ways, they're worse because, as the senator was saying, for SNAP, the work requirements say you can only get SNAP for 3 months out of 3 years. And let me just mention those 3 years, it's not the same 3 years, it's not 3 years that's personal to you, it's the same 3 years for everybody. So if people get cut off, the current 3-year period is going to end on December 31st, 2026. So anybody who gets cut off can come back again in 2027. But 2027, when these Medicaid work requirements come, it's going to be worse because in order to even get on Medicaid, if these requirements apply to you, you're going to have to show that you've already been working or complying for a month at least before you can even get on Medicaid. So that's going to be terrible. And a year from now or something, I'm sure I and others are going to be coming to groups like this and explaining how the Medicaid work requirements are going to work, so to speak, and how people can be exempt. So that's a terrible thing that's happening in a year. It's not going to apply to people who are disabled, elderly people who are on Medicare, or anybody getting disability-related Medicaid, but for adults between 18 and 65 who have the same thing, don't have kids under 14, will be subject to those Medicaid work requirements. Another thing that's going to happen starting in 2027 is that people will have to renew their Medicaid twice a year rather than once a year. And I know paperwork is sort of the biggest problem that my clients face. I should say that, at Community Legal Services, what we do is we help people who have been cut off or denied Medicaid and SNAP. People are coming to our office every week and we help with those. A third thing that's going to happen again starting in 2027 is a reduction of retroactive Medicaid. Currently, people, if you apply for Medicaid, you can get Medicaid backwards up to 3 months before you applied. So say you're in a terrible accident and you end up hospitalized and you spend a couple months working on your health, and then you get this bill, and then you apply for Medicaid, and it can go backwards and cover your medical bills for that period of time. There's the length of time that they can go backwards and cover back bills will be much shorter starting in 2027. So, as I say, terrible changes that are all designed to save money, and as the senator said, give tax cuts to the rich, are coming in 2027. But for now, the changes that I'm focused on are these SNAP cuts that started last week. And what I mostly want to talk to you about is this flyer that I hope people have picked up. It's over on the table, and we've got lots of them. Is about the exemptions and who can be protected from the SNAP work requirements. The senator mentioned that people who are under 18 don't have to work, people who are over 65 don't have to work, people who are already getting disability benefits like SSI or Social Security disability, those people are going to be easy. I think the county assistant's office knows that the work requirements don't apply to you, but almost everybody else will have to sort of raise their hand and say, I don't think these apply to me. And the way people can raise their hand this other flyer that's over here. This is a flyer that the county assistant, the DHS in Harrisburg, mailed to 100,000 people on SNAP last month. And I think some are coming out this month. And this is a list of the kinds of exemptions that can protect people from the SNAP work requirement. So if you are pregnant, you don't have to comply with the work requirement. If you are caring for somebody in your household, like your elderly mom, you don't have to comply with the work requirement. If you're in school or training half-time, you don't have to comply with the work requirement. If you're getting unemployment, if you are homeless, if you have experienced domestic violence in a way that keeps you from working, all of those can excuse you from the work requirement. And maybe most important, the one that sort of applies to the most number of people, is people who have a medical condition that reduces their ability to work. So let me say that again, a medical condition that reduces your ability to work. This is not the same as being disabled. Lots of people are pushing through their health conditions, their depression, their pain, their fatigue, their shortness of breath. People have conditions that reduce their ability to work, and they're working anyway. But if they have a condition that reduces their ability to work, then they can be excused from these work requirements. And if you are exempt, if you're excused, you're protected for a year. And so that's one reason why we're focusing so much on these exemptions. If you're complying, if you've got a volunteer position, you got to be doing that every month. And if you stop, then the time limit starts running for you. The way the rules are set up, if you are exempt when you apply or when you renew, that exemption is good for a year. So we really want people to get this medical form signed. So this is the one that says, that's filled out by a medical provider saying my patient has a medical condition that reduces their ability to work. And then the provider signs this. And it doesn't have to be a doctor. It can be a substance use counselor. It can be anybody that the doctor's office has approved to sign the forms. It can be a social worker. There's a long list. Basically, anybody whose services can be reimbursed by Medicaid can sign the form. So this is why, as I said, I want to paper Philadelphia with this form. I want every doctor's office, every substance use treatment program, every mental health treatment program in the city of Philadelphia to have this form and just be signing it. Because so many people have medical conditions that reduce their ability to work. And if this form is signed and in your file, you're good for a year. The other exemption that this is a really weird one, but will protect a lot of people is sort of oddly, if you are earning $217.50 a week, you are exempt as well as complying. I mean, most people, if you're earning $217.50 a week, that's about $11 an hour at 20 hours a week. Most of those people are complying with a work requirement, but because of the rules, it's a weird rule, but it's a rule. If you're earning $217.50 a week, you are exempt. And that's a good thing because, again, exempt people are good for a year. If you're complying, and then there's a month where you're not working 80 hours, you got to report them, the time limit starts running. So if you are earning $217.50 a week, you want to make sure the county assistant's office knows that and codes you, oh yeah, you're exempt, and then you're good for a year. Those are the key points I wanted to make. I do this training for like an hour and could keep going on and on. You got a question in the back?
Yeah, when you talk about like the volunteer requirement,
Yeah.
is it possible to like, could you fulfill those requirements volunteering for like a social welfare organization like an NACP or ACLU or something like that?
Sure, as long as they fill out the form.
Oh.
You're also going to have to have the county assistant's office get that form and fill fill out some other paperwork. It's, the paperwork for compliance is tougher than the paperwork for exemptions, which is another reason why I'm talking about these exemptions. The final thing I wanted to mention about the exemptions, other than this medical form for people who have medical conditions that reduce their ability to work, and the exemption because you're earning $217.50 a week or more, the other exemptions, you don't have to prove them. You just have to make sure the county assistant's office knows about them, and they don't require proof unless they think what you said is questionable, meaning they've got some reason to think you're lying or mistaken. If you say you're pregnant, if you say you're caregiving for somebody in your household, they should not be requiring proof unless they've got some reason to think that you're not telling the truth.
Louise, we have all the exemption forms, so if anyone is needing the exemption form that you just listed, the employment training one that Michael just mentioned, the medical one that you just listed as well. So we have all those exemption forms, and our office would be happy to submit the forms to the state instead of you going to the county assistant's office.
That's great. And somebody, there's a question here.
Yeah, I need your guidance and some suggestions. My name is Kimberly Mathis, and I'm representing Northwest Neighbors of Germantown. I'm an advocate for the community. Right now, I am assisting a 77-year-old elder that has lost his wife and his family. We're not helping him. He does not have Medicaid, which he needs a home health aide. So do I go through Philadelphia Corporation of the Aging to try to help him get Medicaid? He's on a fixed income, tight. He cannot afford to pay it out of pocket. So where do we go?
It's called the Independent Enrollment Broker, or the IEB.
I did that, and
Okay,
she
so
never
they-
showed up.
Oh, that's terrible. I called him again and said she never showed up. 'Cause
Never showed up.
What the IEB does, are people familiar with these home care
Yes.
programs?
I went through that.
Yeah. This is a part of Medicaid, long-term care for people who have medical conditions that might otherwise require them to move into a nursing home, but you can get care in your home instead, which is what most people want. People want to stay in their home. The way to do that is you call this thing called the Independent Enrollment Broker, and they send somebody from the Philadelphia Corporation for Aging out to your house to assess whether you're clinically eligible, and they should also help you fill out the long paperwork to apply for Medicaid from the county assistant's office. It's a long process,
It is.
and our office helps when people have been denied.
Thank you for that. And I also wanted to add that I went that direction on my own. I did not go through PCA to help with that, but I think I'm going to go through PCA to help with that.
Yeah.
Because she did not show up. It was a rainy day, no show. I'm like, oh, really?
That's nuts, right? And then people who need this care don't get it, right?
Thank you so much.
So I've been talking with other nonprofit organizations in the area, and I'm wondering if rather than I guess each of the nonprofit organizations has to file that form. You're saying, even though if we set up our own kind of system where it's a group, it's kind of a consortium of different things, and when we interview the person who needs the dispensation or the coverage. So I'm hoping that would be a good way to handle, rather than each organization doing the work on their own.
Right. And it sounds like Senator Haywood is also trying to do some coordination. Can I just emphasize again, if you want to help people, I really think where the energy needs to go is going through the exemption checklist with people. I think most people should fit into one of these exemptions. It protects people for a year. It doesn't force them to volunteer, sort of maybe when they didn't want to. Yes, we need a backup for people who can't be exempt. But again, this medical test of do you have a medical condition that reduces your ability to work? I that like 80% of folks who are subject to this time limit, especially these older folks between 55 and 64, who are going to be subject to this starting in November, I would hope that a lot of people would be able to get one of these exemptions, and that the energy we should be putting into this, while the volunteer work is going to be important, especially now, the finding people exempt is my #1 priority. I don't want to be dismissive.
No, I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you.
You had a question?
I just want to know, so they go to school?
Yeah, if going to school at least half-time is an exemption. So for example, 18-year-olds are subject to this time limit, but if they're still in high school or at community college, they're exempt because the people at school at least half-time are exempt.
Just a couple of things. You said, I think it was said that the compliance for doing volunteer work that you have a lot of work to show you were compliant. Is that also true? Let's say if you're this community organization that has some volunteers, do you have a lot of paperwork to do to prove that they actually did the volunteer work?
So I'm a little surprised that DHS is giving 2 different forms there. This is new to Philadelphia. I've never seen this before, so we're all sort of learning this as we go. But the rules that I've seen from DHS is that volunteer agencies need to sign this PA 1938 form, this one, that says that this is the schedule that somebody's going to be working. And if this form is completed, then I don't think this weekly activity verification form has to be completed, but I haven't been told this, but Senator Haywood's office apparently has. I have been told that people who are volunteering, they're going to have to fill out more paperwork at the county assistant's office, and they may be sent to one of the EARN programs, like the Career Link here in Germantown, which is going to be monitoring their hours, and it may be that the Career Link will be expecting this to be done. As I say, it's new to me, and I think the county assistant's office, certainly the one in Philadelphia, has not gotten any particular guidance on this. They're not making, to some extent, this is being made up as we go along.
Right. And another question. A few years ago, my son was a student at Temple University, and he went to Johnny Johnson's stamps, and they said he had to work 20 hours a week, but I understand it's not true if you're a community college. I didn't know if that's changed. It's still just community college where you exempt?
There are complicated rules for college students to be eligible for SNAP. Community college students are eligible. Other college students have to be working 20 hours a week, or actually the same medical exemption form works to make students eligible for SNAP. So if students have medical conditions that reduce their ability to work, they could get SNAP.
You mean that, anxiety, how are you going to get to school?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Louise, from CLS. We're now going to welcome Dr. Sonia Lewis, also known as a student loan doctor. She has helped thousands of families navigate student debt and financial planning. Tonight she'll focus on how the Big Beautiful Bill will affect student loans and borrowers nationwide.
Hi everyone, good evening.
Hi.
Great information, thank you so much. So my specialty is federal student loan debt. We've been in business now for about 10 years, and we are based out of Philadelphia, although we help nationwide. So I'm going to go through about 7 major changes that are going to be impacting student loan borrowers. So if you do not have student loans tonight, I would just ask that you still stay tuned in, because we know about 2, 3, 10,000 people that have them, right? So you can always take this information back home. So the first one is that borrowing limits are going to be decreased. Now this is significant because we know that the cost of education is going up, and sometimes depending on where a student is going, funding is going down. So we're going to see a decrease in borrowing limits. Now I'm going to speak high level tonight about some of this, exact numbers are gonna come out a little closer to the end of the year. So if you stay in touch with me, I'll be publishing when they finalize what those numbers are. It's still in revision. The second thing is they're going to eliminate graduate plus loans. Now this is really big because if we know students that are going to graduate school, planning to go to graduate school as of 2026, they're going to be able to take a grad loan, but not a grad plus loan. So let's talk about the difference. So a grad loan, you're able to borrow. At this point right now, they're thinking about limiting it to about $120,000. Now I know that sounds like a lot, but if anyone's ever looked up how much grad school costs, that's only about maybe a year at best. Because remember, in grad school, you're not receiving grants, and sometimes you're not receiving scholarships. Does that make sense? So they're going to eliminate the plus part. So the plus part is where we see people borrow a lot of money because that's based on your credit or earning potential. But that is going to be done away with. It's very significant that people know this before going to grad school. Anybody know why? Because people used to rely on that, and you don't want someone to take their first year of school and can't continue. Now they have a partial degree, right? Or they have credits. So this can really jam people up that are not aware of this information. We're going to see this really affect, I would say, low-income minority students who are studying professional degrees. So our dentists, our doctors, they rely on graduate plus loans to fund their education through professional degrees. But again, that's going to be eliminated. So there's going to be a bigger push for seeing students look into private loans. If anyone ever got a private loan, you know that's the devil in written form, all right? So private loan is just not your friend. It's like signing up for death row. So we want to make people aware of this so that they can think about funding and fellowships ahead of time. All right, the next one is changing plans of repayment. Now this is really important. Right now, there are current options to make student loan repayment affordable. We have the income-based repayment plan, we have the pay plan, and then we also have the ICR plans. I'm going to explain those three, all right? So stay with me. I'm going to ask you guys to participate. Are you going to participate? I have a quick activity.
Yes.
All right. Has anyone in here ever used a Walkman?
Walkman.
A CD player? A stereo?
Yes.
I know y'all looking like, I'm like, this is my room, right? Queen Helen's cocoa butter.
Yes.
All right, let's see. Crown Royal hair grease. Let's see, my grandmother used Aerie deodorant. It was good, it's good. Carrie lotion.
Yeah.
Did you ever buy chips for 25 cents or sunflower seeds for 25 cents? Okay. All right. So how I help people remember and associate the plan that they can choose is that if you resonated with any of those things, you would select the IB as in ball R plan, IBR. Everybody got it? Well, that's the plan that students that have borrowed, and I'll call them seasoned students, that's me too, y'all, would only be eligible for that plan, IBR. So when I teach my class, I'd like to make
I wanted to
people,
go back to school.
and no, for repayment, repayment. Because here's what's happening, there's so many, yeah. Oh, well, no, a lot of people, yeah. So this is going to affect older millennials, and then we're going into our 40s, 50s, 60s, and we even still have clients that have student loan debt in their 70s, because it used to be about 5 years ago, when you hit the age of about 65, they forgave the whole amount, but that got discontinued. All right, so they may be in a $0 plan, but they still have student loans, okay? And then the pay plan would be for someone who would be, I would say, probably like age 25 and younger. They could be eligible for that plan. And if you have a Parent Plus loan, you're eligible for the ICR plan. Now, there's only one good thing that came out of this bill for Parent Plus loans, is that if you, and I'm going to say this slowly, if you have a Parent Plus loan and you consolidate it, you're eligible for the ICR plan. Everybody follow? ICR. As long as you're enrolled in that plan, as we go into 2026, the Trump administration said they're going to change that plan to the IBR plan. Now that is a big win for parents. That's the only really good thing I can pull out. Because right now, the ICR plan is really, really expensive to be paying. It's really astronomical for parents. But if it gets changed to the IBR plan, that's affordable. Everybody follow? So, but here's the caveat. If people don't know to enroll and consolidate and get into the ICR plan before the end of this year, they're not eligible indefinitely.
Before the end of this year.
Yes. Everybody got that?
Wow.
So how many more months before the end of the year?
So,
Three.
do you have any, like, sheets that we can give out?
So I tagged to your page and the Germantown page a summary of what I'm saying on mine, and then I'll give you my information at the end. Every Monday at 8 p.m. EST, I teach for free every Monday for 2 hours, and I take my time to walk all of this through.
Like on Zoom?
On Zoom. So sometimes we have 500 people, sometimes we have 1,000 people every Monday. Yeah, every Monday,
Well,
even if I'm in
well, that's
Canton.
great.
Yeah.
No, it's great that you have that many people, because it means that the information is getting out.
I would, yeah. Well, when we say who's new here, it's a lot of new, so that's a good sign, yeah. But we have to stress these repayment plans because this is where this bill is really going to impact people next year. And we're talking about you have to pay your student loans. There's no more the way that. Well, let me keep going. There's no more friendliness in terms of like people say I'm never paying these loans. Well, in theory, you could get away with that for some time. But now with this administration and these lenders, that's not the case. So the next one is, this is where I'm going, they're eliminating unemployment and economic hardship deferment.
Oh my God.
So if you legit are unemployed or you legit have an issue with paying back your loans because of finances, you used to could fill out a deferment or your lender would help you. That's eliminated with this bill as well. So the only choice someone would have, and this is really important to express this to others, is that they would have to do their IDR application, that's the application saying I'm willing to repay, and the application would have to determine that they would get a $0 payment. Everybody got that? So that way they don't go into default, but they're still going to accrue interest, okay? But
They have to apply for
they
this.
have to apply. Now remember, if someone's unemployed or stressed out, they are not thinking about this application, okay? Most people just are not. They're like, I'm not paying.
So are you applying for the possibility that in the future you would lose your job?
No. Once you, if someone lets you go tomorrow, even if you're employed right now, you have to remember to go online and submit a new application and say, hey, I've had a change in employment. So they can get a $0 plan.
What's the processing time for that? You submit the application.
Well,
Will it backdate it from the time?
It will, but normally what happens is it takes 60 to 90 days to process, but when a lender receives it, they'll put you into a forbearance. That usually takes about a week. It's just the $0 piece takes longer. Okay, let's keep going. Now, if you are going to use what's called general forbearance, there's different ones. General forbearance is you just call your lender and say, hey, I can't pay. Well, you only have 36 months in the lifetime of the loan to use it, right? Now, in the past, people went over 36 months. Everyone following? Now, this administration is saying, we're going to hold you to it. So not to be funny, most people don't even have any of this left. But let's say you do. They're going to reduce forbearance from 12 months to 9 months every 2 years. So similar, we're seeing trends here, like 3 months per. So there's a lot of trends here with eligibility of things. So you could say, hey, I am needing to not pay my loan because, and let's say you are employed, just stuff kind of tight. You never know what could come up. You can get up to 9 months every 2 years. Okay? So you have to use that wisely. It would be better, as an expert, I'll tell you, it would be better to say, let me go online and report there's a life change. And when a life change qualifies to lower payment would be if someone moved into the home. So if the household size changes, the payment can be reduced. That's the only way legally a payment could be changed. Now, we don't want people getting crafty and go online and say, oh, 3 people just moved in, right? Because in my experience, doing this for 10 years, I only saw it once, and I hope to never see it again for a client. A client did not take my advice. It was like, I'm telling them 8 people live with me. I said, well, sir, you only make 50,000. I said, where are these people sleeping in? Just thinking about that out loud. He said, that's what I'm putting down. I said, oh, I'm not helpful with that. So we had to like fire him as a client. So long story short, he comes back. He said, I need to pay you. I need help. I said, what do you need? He said, I got this form. So I said, okay, let me look at it. I've never seen it but once in my whole profession. It was a green form, and they wanted everyone's name, date of birth, and social, who was in the household. So we don't want people to get crazy with that, because then there is a verification process. I only seen it once. I said, here's what you do. You call back and say that was a 3 and not an 8. Tell them you made a mistake. And it worked, and they fixed it over the phone. You know, but here's the thing. No, here's the thing. He was just being weird, because even with 3 people plus him, with making 50,000, he still was going to get a $0 payment. You see where I'm going with this? He was fine. He just was being extra and put 8 people. Again, it's just stay with us. All right. The next thing is they're going to reduce Pell Grants. Now, this is really scary because this administration, they're being very sneaky about this too. When they introduced the Big Beautiful Bill concept, they were talking about it, they promised, because I had watched a lot of the news reports about this, they were not going to touch the Pell Grant, but they in fact are. They just haven't published the amount that they're going to decrease it to. In the last few years under Obama and Biden, the Pell Grant has been increased significantly. And I know this because this is right after I was in college, and my Pell Grant, I remember, was so low, and I really did not have to fund it. And then after I graduated, it almost tripled. So I believe it's probably going to go down to more like 3,000 a year. Right now it's around 7 or 8. Does that make sense? So we just need to prepare people for that large reduction.
A question is being asked. Is who would want to go to for legal representation? I'm so sorry. No, okay, I'm so sorry. Who? Can you guys, yes? Who would one go to for legal representation? This student has a court hearing coming on a Zoom, and she needs legal representation.
You know what's going on?
I don't know everything, but they're asking for a good attorney. You know.
Let's talk offline. I would need to know more to see if it's related to school, student loans, or we need to just talk offline.
Yes.
Okay.
But I'm permitted to give her your information.
Well, I may not be able to help, but I may have a contact. So let's just talk. Because this sounds urgent. I don't want to about that. Okay. The next is the borrowing cap. Right now, when we help people with student loan debt, we literally just got a gentleman forgiven $997,000. 3,000 shy of $1 million. So that tells you there's no borrowing cap prior. Now, before we judge this man, he's a nice man. Yes, he has 2 surgeon degrees and 2 of his children are doctors. So I want you guys to put yourselves in his shoes for a second. Everybody take a deep breath. Just imagine someone who is coming from a middle-class background. Middle-class parents do not oftentimes get their students in position to take advantage of grants. You know, there's a thing where you either need to make no money or have a lot of money. But parents that are in the sticky middle get really jammed with student loans. They got to take Parent Plus loans, Graduate Plus loans. Are you everyone's following? And that's actually a lot of people we know fall into what we call the sticky middle. So this is not an uncommon situation. The amount is so high because he's older and he's just never paid because he can't, even as a surgeon. So with a payment of $997,000, his minimum payment was $10,000 over 30 years a month. That's not feasible when he's only probably a surgeon. He said, what was his income? It was like $250,000. That's before taxes. So, long story short, he had to assume responsibility for, I'm just giving you background, for the 2 children because his wife had passed away and they want to be like their father, go to grad school and become doctors. So he assumed a lot of their debt because why? Dad makes a lot, right? But he really doesn't in proximity to student loans. And so in any case, we were able to get him forgiven.
Are they, there used to be work in under-resourced.
Well, I'm going to talk about that. That's what we got him forgiven under. But he was so stressed out, he didn't even know He just, now not to be funny, do you want your surgeon that's stressed out working on you?
No.
Imagine how many people are like that in today. Like we can go to Einstein right now and do a survey, and I know because I've helped some of them. Their student loan debt over there is between 200 and 600,000. So when you see them not that happy, you just know why. Okay. So we have to get this information to even our professionals. You know, you could be at a doctor appointment one day, just bring this up to someone. I know that maybe it's not your situation, but even our caretakers, people who help us in government, I'm always sure to ask people in certain fields, hey, you have any student loans? Because people aren't thinking that they can get forgiven, and they can. I'm going to talk about that in one more second. And then the last thing is these changes are going to be as soon as January 2026, and then as late as July 2026. Now let's talk about some good stuff. There are still things available through the Biden administration. The Biden administration did a wonderful job of cleaning up student loan forgiveness, right? The Obama administration started, but the Biden and Harris administration really did an excellent job. We were, I call it like pseudo partners with the administration. Secretary Cardona would do Instagram Live with us once a month, which is a big deal. They never went live on Instagram with any private business but ours. And they would literally come on, because he knew I have a following, and he would talk to hundreds of people and tell everyone the updates the day they came out. So it was really cool. He would leave the White House press secretary, right? They do the press, and then he'd get on live with us. So we felt really honored by that. And even when they didn't get reelected, he sent us a nice note and said it was a pleasure working with you all. So we made a real big impact because people was like, how do you, and then we made friends. We would get the same information that CNN and everyone else would get, and we just couldn't say anything until, I think the term was embargoed at like 8 a.m. or something. But no worries, I had my graphic team at 7 a.m. ready to make the graphic, right? But we just kept our promise, and we didn't share until the rest of the world could know. So what I learned through that process is that administration fought really hard. Some of these things are still in place. And what's so funny is, I had it in my phone, Trump just took credit recently on social media for some of this stuff. But remember, this is the stuff that he said he was eliminating. It's hilarious. You have to laugh at some of this. So what's still in place? What you're talking about, public service loan forgiveness. Does anyone in here currently work for or has worked for a nonprofit? Okay? Has anyone, or I'll ask if you know someone, work in education? Mm-hmm. A teacher, right? What years did you work as a teacher?
But I took a little time off and then went back.
Mm-hmm.
I think 73 until 1982.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was off for a couple of years and then I went back. So I worked.
Okay. So there's a window, if anyone wants to write this down, because this is going to really help our community. If you work between October 2007 through October 2022. That program is called TEPSLF, Temporary Expanded Public Service Loan Forgiveness. Now, technically,
Public school, I'm sure.
well, public service, nonprofit, not-for-profit, education, government. So, if you worked in any of those qualifying fields in that time period, no questions asked, you weren't in default, you were not in school, or if you were in school, they'll still see the years that you weren't. You are eligible to get credit for that time worked. The best part about this is you never had to make a payment. Let me say that again. So we need to call all of our friends and family members like, girl, didn't you used to work at so-and-so? And if they have student loans, they can go back to their past employer. They can get the form signed. I recommend that they get it signed in person if possible. Mail it certified so we know that they got it. It takes 60 to 90 days. They'll get credit for the time they worked there.
Does that involve allied health courses too? I taught allied health courses.
So it depends. I remember Allied Health had changed their status. Were they a nonprofit or not-for-profit at the time?
There were many of our allied health schools that we lost in Philadelphia.
So as long as the status, when you worked there, was a not-for-profit status, you would be eligible. So you gotta go find out. Yeah.
even though they are not in existence anymore.
Do you still know anyone that worked there as a supervisor, manager, HR?
Yeah.
They need to just sign the form. They can use their phone number and Gmail. It's not that. Let me tell you something.
No, we had
literally.
We had DBT Business School with
I
dedicated
remember.
placement. We had
So it
Amherst
just-
Institute.
So it just remembers, it just goes by the status of the school. You just have to check and see if it was a not-for-profit.
Thank you. That's interesting.
Yeah. So here's what people do. The brain will talk you out of this. I'm telling you. I literally had a lady who was asking me all these questions, all this free advice. And I told her, I said, I'm only replying to you through the Lord. Because I needed her to know, man, we need to pay for services, because she wanted you to look at forms and credits. I'm like, girl, we can pay for this. So I helped her. So long story short, I told her, I said, this is my last message replying to you, because you're not even sending the form off to see if they say yes or no. Do you know how many people just will go back and forth with you and not at least send the free form? And so long story short, she said, fine, I'm going to send it. I'm like, okay. Forgot all about this. Literally, I would say 6 months later, I was speaking at an event in Georgia, and this lady comes up with crying. And I'm like, what is going on here? And she said, and it's so funny, she said, I'm Angel something, whatever her Instagram name is, because people don't forget you by your Instagram name. And I said, oh, I know who you are. She said, I got 322,000 forgiven, and I just wanted to hug you in person, and I saw you were speaking here. I said, oh, and it hit me. I said, you're the lady I was about to block. I said, because you kept going back and forth with me, and I was just telling you to do it for free. Just go do it. And she just could not wrap her head around that she could get credit and not have made a payment. Everybody follow? And most people can't wrap their head around that. They'll say, well, I worked there for 15 years. I never paid nothing. They'll tell you the whole. I never asked you, did you make a payment? I said, did you work there at least 30 hours a week? Okay, I'm only preparing you with this conversation because if you go tell a family or friend this, what do you think they're going to say to you? I ain't going to pay that loan. I was embarrassed. You have to hold the line and say, but the lady said didn't even have to make a payment. Just put it on me, all right? And then they fill out the form, and I've literally seen this with tons of teachers here. I help a lot of state and city officials. People are getting 100% forgiven in 60 to 90 days. It makes a financial difference. Everybody got that?
Yeah.
So please, if you don't do anything else, just go tell a friend about that one thing. That would be enough, okay? Then, and it's still a program that's still eligible too. So if people work there, they can still get credit. They just now have to be making a payment to get credit. The next one is borrower's defense. Does anybody know someone?
Quick question, what about like volunteering? Does that count?
No, it has to be that you work there for 30 hours. Yeah. How many years? So you just in that window of 07 to 22, it's just no questions asked, you get that credit. So if it's only a year, it's only 5, it's only, you want to go get that credit. Yeah, most people are. When I do big events, I ask people to stand, and half of the room stands, and then half of the room be ready to run out and go get the form. Yeah.
What's the name of that program?
Temporary expanded public service loan forgiveness. But if you go to studentaid.gov and you just type in TEPSLF, the abbreviation will bring you to the form.
Thank you.
The next one is borrower's defense. Does anyone know someone in here who went to a for-profit institution? Phoenix, DeVry, Strayer, Walden. That one too. Anybody know of one? Did you go to one or no? Correct.
I know one.
Okay. Does anyone know of someone who went to any of those schools? You probably do. Most people, for masters particularly, would go to a for-profit institution because the bachelor's degree was required, not much more. Like, you really don't, depending on what you study. So it's good for us to ask our family and friends, hey, what school did you go to? Then the next question is, was it a for-profit? Well, 9 times out of 10, if it was, there's an application called Borrower's Defense that can get completed. Now here's the caveat. It takes up to 3 years for review, but it puts that person's payment on hold for 3 years too. And 9 times out of 10, they're going to get 100% forgiven. And they may, even if they make student loan payments, get a check back. So that's called borrower's defense. So we want people to know about that program. The last one is total permanent disability. Now, here's what I tell people. You don't look like what your student loans are putting you through. I don't know everyone's health and wellness and illness in here. We all got different things going on, right? But if someone, if you want to write this down, if someone you know has a chronic illness, a chronic disease, meaning something's continuous, it will continue to impact their income earning abilities, they could be eligible for the TPD program, Total Permanent Disability. When that program application gets submitted, it can be taken to their doctor, or if they don't have a doctor, they can be assigned to a doctor through the Department of Education to evaluate, hey, Miss Sammy here, she's going to have an issue with making her student loan payments because of her chronic illness. All right, that's important because some people are on and off with work, still trying to make student loan payments. If it's 3 years that the illness is affecting their ability to pay, because they'll be enrolled in a temporary 3-year window, at the end of the 3rd year, they're 100% forgiven. If someone has 100% disability now, they can get forgiven in 30 days. Okay? So that's important for you to know, because we don't never know what's going to happen with life. I have a friend who suffers chronically. Every other year, a brain tumor starts to grow back. Now, does it look like a brain tumor is growing back with her? No, because she keeps her hair shaved like really trendy on one side, and she wears a wig when it's time to get her checkup. They say, hey, it's growing again. They've got to get on top of it with the surgery. This is her life. Because of it, her student loans were wiped clear. Because every few years, it impacts her ability to keep consistent work. Does that make sense? So again, we don't know what people have going on, but we know that if the income is involved, it can impact that. Okay, I think that's the gist of student loan updates. I would say if you have Instagram, you can follow me there. You can tell others to follow me there, because the way to enroll in class, I'll give you 2 ways. Through our social media is the Student Loan Doctor. And then our website is drpleasehelpme.com. As soon as you go on it, a big banner, you'll see it says click here to register for our free class.
What's the online one?
drpleasehelpme.com. And then social media is the Student Loan Doctor. And the Trump administration keeps us very busy. So I am a pseudo news reporter. So what happens is every day, or thereabout every day, I do a 60-second clip of what you need to know about whatever is happening in the world of student loans. And then sometimes we partner with Channel 6, Nydia Hine. She'll interview me and she'll clip up segments to make sure whatever is happening we would have discussed, they'll put it on the news hour for the evening.
So these are free things that a person can sign up for?
For the class.
And they're free?
Mm-hmm.
But what is it that you charge for? When you're saying?
Yep. So if we help you, now let's say, what's your name? Suzanne. Let's say, Suzanne, you wanted us to work with you and help you fill out your forms. Well, people would pay us for that because what was happening is they would fill out the form and they would skip stuff. I know this sounds really crazy. So you would say, hey, Suzanne, you might not want to skip section 1 through 5. Or they would not skip something and they would get partial credits back. Because we know what we're looking at, we would say, hey, let's call the lender and ask, what happened to 2013 through 16? Where are your credits? Now, Suzanne, you're stressed out, you're frustrated, you're not looking at that. We are. Call the lender. Oh, I see, we've made an error. You missed 3 years? And then you also, last thing, have to remember, when this forgiveness piece got taken taken away from Mohilia and other lenders, the Department of Education picked it up. But it was a really bad handoff. So many people, paperwork literally got thrown away. So you're thinking that you just wait any day now. It's never coming. So then people get frustrated, we help them with that. Or we'll help someone do the borrower's defense application. It's about 15 pages. And an average person that is overwhelmed by this is not going to do it. But we do them in our sleep. I'm trying to think, if someone's in default. Now, everything I teach, and if you've ever come to classes, to our class, so I teach, you can do yourself. But it's kind of like taxes. If you know that you don't want to stay on the phone for an hour to get your default resolved, we can speak on your behalf. You would give us proxy permission. And then when the collection agency is nasty, we're not offended by that because we're expecting them to be nasty. But if they're nasty to you, that might make you want to do what? Hang up. They're counting on you to hang up. I'm telling you, they put people on hold for 15 minutes. You put me on hold for 15 minutes if I'm doing the work, I'm filing my nails. Because I remember, I'm expecting to do this. But an average person is not going to stay on hold for 15 minutes. They're not going to tolerate you being nasty. And the last thing they're going to do, because there's stall tactics, you know what? We got page 1, but we don't have page 3. So now she's got to go back to Staples and do what? Send page 3. So there's a lot of foolery that the lenders and collection agencies are allowed to get away with this administration. So we make several copies of everything because we're expecting them to say what? They lost page, I don't know, today it could be page 5. And then we literally had, I never forget this moment, and that's how I know the work we do counts because this lady laughed. She said, I can see I'm dealing with an expert here. Hold on. Like she knew that we had time. Right. Because she got it done. But the average person would do what? Hang up. I'm not doing this. Now if you go in default, they take the paycheck from you. They take a portion of your paycheck. You're not able to buy a home. So these are big things that really matter. It's not just you're in default. Your livelihood is really impacted by this. Your credit goes down 100 points. So in that case, and then we price really fair. So we've always been pricing at a fair price as well. But the thing is, I'll say this lastly, I say to class, I say here, you don't have to pay us to do anything. You're really only paying for convenience. Everything you can do yourself through studentaid.gov, but don't start it and not finish it.
When you say that you teach every week, once a week, is it always the same, or now that you have so a person can get on anytime and
well, the thing is, we have a community, so our community's been around now for close to 10 years. So we haven't gotten that person forgiven. They're probably just really tied in with us, so they just come every Monday because it just is like a big family meetup of one.
But students that come for the first time.
Oh yeah.
And they get all.
It's a whole presentation.
Right.
And then at the top of the presentation, I just reiterate what new will be shared. So returning people, like literally people come every week for months. But I'll say, hey guys, in this class today, a new update came out about so-and-so, and then I'll let them know that we're going to address that. Most people, even our students that have gotten forgiven, they're still on Zoom. I don't know why they're still with us for 2 hours. I think they just happen to like us. But the point of the matter is, the last thing I will say is our clients and our students are ages 40 through 70. And in the pandemic, I was teaching every night, Monday through Friday. So we have a really big community in which we often, and I just put you in perspective, will meet up and sometimes have lunch with each other. Well, when you think about who's in the room that has student loan debt, they're what? Professionals. So it would behoove you to come to these meetups because you're not in a room with anybody that's not educated or about their business. They just have student loans. So then they found that they actually like each other. And it's like, girl, you owe $300,000? Well, I owe $222. How are you? And then they made this community. And I know it sounds really weird, but most people cannot talk to other people about financial burdens like this one. And then they found each other. And I think we just have the best community because I'm the best. And I don't tolerate meanness. And we don't. Yes and no. So the business is still here. My mom is still here. I have property here. But I am relocating where I'm going to. Yeah, Atlanta is happening next week, but I technically still live in Maine. So, yeah, wherever there's internet, I can be. But I always come back to the city because I am connected to the city. We met each other years ago. And I help a lot of city and state officials, like I said, and my church is still here. So I'm always able to fly in and come in because, well, one, Philly is home. I'm from Philly. But I wanted to move somewhere warmer. You're warmer? Oh, even when I lived in Maine, my fiance made a joke that said, you always fly out on snowstorms. I said, I've got an ad here that says one's coming. So go ahead.
Is your site still on German? It's coming up on Germantown.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's okay.
Well, so we're not there physically every day. If anything, we're there once a month. Right there at Chestnut Hill, across from Staples. So if you go to Staples and you look across the street, it says still on out there. Yeah. But we always no. Yeah. Okay. Well, I thought you all just got to know each other really well. We share coffee, right? So, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia. And so now I'm going to speak directly as a creator of Philly Teen Jobs. The Big Beautiful Bill is already impacting local students in Philadelphia. I have a student in college. Her friends are in college. Some of these college students have applied for grants, like the PHEAA state grant and other funding. And they're finding that these funds have been temporarily halted, leaving them with large tuition bills. My daughter has one. What are we about to do? So for parents who have students in college, as a mom, I'm thinking of what can we do right now? Scholarships. That needs to be the second full-time job, is applying to scholarships all the time. You're on board, moms, go fill out for a scholarship, please. If you're able, consider Parent Plus loans. There's a handout I created for parents to discuss with their kids, a little game plan of flow of what we're going to think about doing. We're going to apply to scholarships. We're going to think about Parent Plus loans. We're going to think about taking out student loans, be a little bit more strategic on how we take out these student loans. If you got it, pay out of pocket. Pay mine if you do, thank you. You may want to get that part-time job student to help pay some of these bills with parents. And also have a really serious conversation that the plan of going to college may look a little bit different. And think about a trade school, okay? And women and men, think about trade schools beyond plumbing, electrical, construction. We also have part of the trades that's becoming a very, very important and adamant, digital skills, AI, coding. If you notice, if you go into our local McDonald's and fast food places, the counters look a little different. We don't see our 14 and 15-year-olds up there. We go to a kiosk. So we need to think a little bit different, parents, about what the first jobs are going to look like, because it's not, oh, just go to McDonald's. No, we have computers there, but someone needs to run the computer. Someone needs to code the computer. So think about AI, think about digital skills, like that. In step 3, we have college prep programs. We have training programs. They're starting earlier and earlier for our kids. In 9th grade, a lot of the high schools are partnering with CHOP Hospital, things like that, to start them in medical assisting. There's a lot of youth programs all over the city that will train your child in barbering, cosmetology, electrical. And I want to, again, force women, we can do welding, we can do plumbing, we can decorate, we can do construction, all the things that everyone else can do, we can do as well. Get into it. Think about your plan a little differently for right now. It's not about going to college. It is, but it also can include trade schools and what these trade schools can look like and what the long-term investment is to the trade versus college. The uncertainty with the grants and scholarships is really scary. It's harder for our kids to apply for scholarships when they don't know if they're actually going to get them, and when they do get them, they may be upheld for some type of way. So the thing about the college prep programs, two, they will prepare your child for college, for after high school, what that will look like while you're looking for employment, how to look for employment. And a lot of these places, again, will offer a stipend. Our kids are used to hearing a paycheck. I need a new word, stipend. Get the stipend, because you can get paid to learn and then get your paycheck. So I'm gonna close Ask Philly Teen Jobs. I tell my daughters, I tell all the kids that DM me, act now, work hard now, apply for scholarships now, finish your homework now, because later it only gets harder. It gets harder to apply, it gets harder to study, opportunities, the window shortens. After 18, it shortens. After 21, it shortens. After 23, it shortens. After 25, you're now an adult learner. You're an adult job seeker. You're gonna get treated more like an adult. It's not always fun, okay? Work hard now, play later, work smarter, not harder.
I just want to go back a little bit. I am into educating and mentoring on the importance of doing all of that. AI, digital. We are losing our plumbers. Very hard to find a plumber. I know plumbers that have been with me for decades that have raised their sons to take over the business, and they're not taking it over. So we are grooming now to be able to do it all. As a queen that has done it, I've juggled many jobs. We can put as many on our tool belt as we can, but we don't want to really discredit out the trades. We don't. So we have to groom these youths to be able to do more than one they can. We got babies that can run this phone better than 5-year-olds.
And there's coding classes for babies and all the way up. There's things that these kids can learn so early that can help them when they get to 18 and when they're deciding which way to go. You can fall back on that medical assisting certificate you got in high school. You can fall back on that plumbing certificate, that class that you took in the summertime that you didn't want to go to, you did go to, because now you can use those skills while you're figuring out which way you want to go. Or you may want to even, don't forget about our entrepreneurs. Get the training, start your own business. If there's any more questions, we can hold them now. If not, we're gonna, also, there's the City of Philadelphia Office of Community Empowerment and Opportunity. They are tabled in the back and they have a bunch of resources. We also have tabling Cindy Bass's office. They have some resources on the table that feel free to take. And also Germantown United, we have tote bags with a bunch of resources in there. Flyers for Philly Teen Jobs are in there. If you follow any of the panelists, you can get all of their information as well. I want to thank.
Wait, Sheirce, do you want me to?
How much time do you have?
7:56.
Okay, we're gonna take some questions from
Like 3.
the comments on the live.
So these are comments that folks left on the registration form.
Okay.
So just like 3 questions won't be.
So we have some questions that were on the registration form that we're gonna have answered. Yeah, we got everybody.
So this first one is for Louise. How does the bill affect children in the city? They're speaking specifically about Medicaid. If you can speak to that now, I know the changes aren't going to affect for a year, but how does the bill affect children in the city who are now receiving behavioral health services that are currently funded by Medicaid?
So the bill doesn't affect children directly, but it cuts the amount of money that states get to run the Medicaid program dramatically. And so Pennsylvania is going to be making some terrible choices about how it's going to be saving money in the Medicaid program. And so some of those cuts might come to seniors, like home care services we're very worried about, or children. The other thing that it does is require a lot more paperwork, and then the county assistance offices are going to be overwhelmed with these SNAP work requirements, with the Medicaid work requirements, with these renewals, Medicaid renewals that are going to be coming twice as fast. And for SNAP in particular, federal government is going to be giving Pennsylvania $130 million less a year for running the program for like those county assistance offices. So this sort of dysfunction is going to lead to problems for kids and seniors, as well as the sort of able-bodied adults that the proponents will say are the only people we're hurting.
And then a second one, because I am on SSDI, do I have to accept Medicare? It's more expensive than Medicaid for workers with disabilities. How can I reject this more expensive Medicare and keep the lower cost MAWD?
That's really sort of a more complicated question than I think we're prepared to deal with now. I think the answer is yes, you can. I'm not sure that's a good idea.
Okay, so whoever asked that question, if you're watching, you have to connect with CLS.
Right.
Okay, Dr. Sonia, these next two are for you. Someone asked, do you believe that student loan repayment programs like HRSA will be impacted? And I'm not familiar with that acronym, so.
So that program is referring to state funding for particularly those in the healthcare field. So that probably won't be impacted because the big beautiful bill is really focusing on federal cuts.
Okay.
So in theory, no.
And then the second one here, both I and my daughter are on SSDI. How can I get the parent student loans I took out for her prior to becoming disabled forgiven?
So they're both on for, let's back up. This goes back to TPD, total permanent disability. So if they are both eligible, they would need to fill out a separate application. It used to be a separate website, but now they would go to studentaid.gov and type in TPD, and there's a link on the site. She would fill out an application, mom would fill out an application, and I'm sure their disabilities are different. And then normally what would have to happen is they would have to furnish proof, go to their doctor. Now if they have 100% disability and are receiving disability, they can send that in with the application.
And then the last question, excuse me, is a little loose, but this person just kind of wants to know about what do you do if you've been in default? What are the options? What is the deal with garnishing paychecks? Like there's a lot of fear around being in default, already being in default, worrying about defaulting, and then also if you have gotten your determination about what you can pay under the IDR and it's still way too high, kind of what to do about that.
The one other thing that came out of this bill for those that are in default is that right now, technically, you only have one time to get out of default in your life. Now the bill is going to increase it to allow up to a second time. So I guess that's the win. So people that have defaulted once, if this is anyone we know, they have in 2026 the opportunity to rehabilitate one more time. It's very important because I really wish I could think of the client that I helped in 2017. I still think about him. He defaulted twice through a consolidation and something else for $50,000, and he had a bad attitude. And I told him before we called, I said, hey, you need to be pleasant, very pleasant. You have no options but just for them to get you the most affordable plan possible with the hopes you can pay this off. Because there's no rehabilitation. And I remember they said, what can you do, $250? He's like, I ain't doing $250. He got really nasty. And I said, listen. It's like I hired 3 people in my lifetime of clients. He was one of 3. So I'm looking at him like, I can't work with you. You're gonna, so he hung up. So I'm calling back. I'm like, oh no, this is not negotiation. This is the government. So he calls back. What did they do, y'all? $350.
Oh my God.
He left the office mad. He was like, I'm gonna just call tomorrow. I'm gonna call tomorrow. I'm doing it myself. And I already knew at this point, we gotta let this guy go. Can't keep the work with him. He calls me back 2 days later and was like, cousin, he's like, can you believe they're making me pay $550? So every time he called, and I just said, sir, I don't know if you see the trend. Every time you call, they're going up $100. calling. You might want to call and apologize. Let's see what that could get a reduction of 100. Like at this point, I say all that to say, if someone has defaulted twice, there may be an opportunity with this bill to get out. Now, if someone's in default right now, when they log into studentaid.gov, it's going to be a red banner that comes up and says, you're in default. That's how you know. You want to click it and you need to see what type of loan is in default. If it's a Pell loan in default, that's the loan that you took out with your institution. You got to call them directly and work it out. If it's a loan in default that's a federal direct loan in default, then you have an opportunity to work with the collection agency. Now, we teach a whole class on this and everything. It's kind of like when you do, I saw paperwork earlier, when you do that paperwork, you got to take your time and not rush through it. You have to demonstrate you have no money. Like your utilities are high. You are estimating that your toilet paper is high. I mean, whatever you say you make a month, it's got to be literally, it looks like you have no money left over. Does this make sense? What happens is people rush that form because they're annoyed. And they're putting anything down, you know, and then like, oh, you got some money. That's what it looks like when you don't take your time. And then you have to make whatever they determine that payment for 9 payments before they let you out of default. Now, what you need to know about those 9 payments is they don't cut taking money out of your paycheck until the 5th payment, because they're still taking money out your check at this point. They're garnishing wages, they're garnishing tax returns, whatever thing they can get. And then the second thing is that money does not go to the loan balance. It goes to the collection agency. You just give them Christmas gifts, is what I tell people. So the lowest payment you can get it to be is $5. So when you asked earlier how we help people, we are going to sit and do the form to demonstrate a $5 need. If not, people have literally not hired us, it's okay, and called and said, oh my God, she said I gotta pay $600. So 600 times 9 is not affordable for most people. And what we can do, and we don't take any money until we can set it up, and then you just really have to call in the morning and pray for a good spirit. Hopefully you can say, you know what, I think I left some things off on my form before making the first payment. If you make that first payment, you're screwed, we can't help. So you gotta say, hey, I just thought about some other things, can I resubmit the form? Normally it works. You resubmitted all the stuff you forgot, and now we get it to $5. Does that make sense? And I know it sounds like this is a lot, but this is what's really going on. And if you don't know, you didn't sit in this room, you didn't hear this conversation, you're out on the road navigating, it can be really stressful. So the point is, they got to go through something called rehabilitation. The mistake people make is that they do something called consolidation, which is you can go online and do it, and you'd be eligible. It takes a few minutes. The problem with that is it would leave the permanent record of being in default on your credit forever. When you go through rehabilitation, it looks like you never were in default. So you want to take the time to do the form, make the 9 payments, so it look like it never happened. But if you just consolidate, that permanent blemish is there for 7 years. That makes sense? That's the gist of it. Now, when you get out of default, people think that's it.
Yeah.
No, now you got to go online and do the IDR application. And when someone's our client, we have reminders in place to say, hey, let's get back together. We don't charge you for it. Let's do the IDR application. Let's now, with this application, demonstrate what you can or can't afford. And now we have to say to the person, you know this your last time. Like, you want to scare them good, because they don't have another chance. Now, again, there may be some rules where they might have a second one under the bill.
Right.
But we want people to think there is no chance, you know. So, because what happens is, statistically, someone who defaults will default again. How do I know this? I have a family member who defaulted. This might be her 3rd. There really is no chance, unless she waits for 2026 this to come through, I'll let her know. But I remember telling her, I helped her a few times, and I said, you're not going to take this serious because I didn't charge you. This is what I told her. I said, if I charge you, you would take this very serious. She's like, you're my family, you get this, I help her. And where are we at? So now, she can't buy a home. It's really hard to get a car with an interest rate under 10%. You know they're taking her taxes every year. I don't know how she mitigates them going in and out her paycheck, but sometimes she gets away with that. But this is the thing. That's too hard to think through for the rest of your working life. You know what I mean? So anyway, if you ever hear somebody say, I'm in default, you know, don't come down on like the barrel back. Just say, hey, you know, there's some options. If you log on to CBA.gov, they'll tell you what to do. Because a lot of people just check out when they get in default.
Yeah.
It was a long answer.
No,
but
it's perfect.
It's a detailed one. Because people think they don't have options.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Are there any more questions? So we're gonna wrap up. On behalf of Germantown United CDC and Affiliated Jobs, I want to thank everyone for coming and viewing. I want to thank our presenters, Senator Haywood, Louise Hayes from Community Legal Services, Sonia the Loan Doctor. I would like to thank our hosting venue of House of Glory and our catered food by Dad's Good. Please support Dad's Good. Send some love that way. I also would like to thank Councilmember Cindy Bass for leading resources, and also thank you, the Office of Community Empowerment and Opportunity, for stopping by and having resources as well. Please take some food home, some fruit things. Thank you again for coming out. Drive home safely. Good night.
Thank you, Sheirce.